The marketplace on Nexus Prime Station smelled like 1,000 different worlds mixed together. Strange creatures chirped, hissed, and growled from their cages. Merchants shouted in dozens of languages, trying to sell exotic pets to passing travelers. Bright lights flickered overhead, and the air felt warm and thick. In the back corner of the marketplace, where the lights were dimmer and fewer people walked by, a small dragon, Hatchling, sat alone in a metal cage. Her scales were dull gray, not shiny like the scales of her brothers and sisters. She was smaller than the other dragon hatchlings who had been sold days ago. Her wings drooped at her sides, and her tail curled around her tiny body. The merchant who owned her cage barely looked at her anymore. He had tried to sell her for 3 weeks. Every customer who stopped would shake their head and move on. Some laughed. Others just walked away without saying anything. "Nobody needs me," the hatchling whispered in her mind. She did not know if anyone could hear her thoughts. She did not know that most creatures could not hear telepathic voices at all. She just felt very alone. Hyun walked through the marketplace with his hands in his pockets. He was a human mechanic who worked in the lower levels of the station, fixing broken machines and keeping old systems running. His clothes were covered in grease stains, and his hair was messy from a long shift. He came to the marketplace to buy spare parts, not to look at exotic creatures. But something made him stop. He felt a pull in his mind, like someone calling his name very softly. He turned toward the back corner of the marketplace and saw the small gray dragon in her cage. Their eyes met. The hatchling's eyes were gold, bright and sad at the same time. "Nobody needs me," the voice whispered in Hyun's mind, clear as day. Hyun blinked. He looked around to see if anyone else heard it. The other shoppers kept walking past. The merchant was busy talking to another customer. Nobody else seemed to notice the small dragon at all. Hyun walked closer to the cage. The hatchling lifted her head and watched him approach. Her eyes followed his every movement. "Hello there," Hyun said softly. He knelt down to be at eye level with her. The hatchling tilted her head. "You can hear me?" "Yes," Hyun said. "I can hear you." The merchant noticed Hyun looking at the cage and hurried over. He was a tall alien with purple skin and too many arms. "Ah, interested in the dragon? I can give you a very good price." "Very good price indeed." "What's wrong with her?" Hyun asked, still looking at the hatchling. The merchant waved one of his hands dismissively. "Nothing wrong, just a different color than her siblings. Some buyers prefer the more colorful ones, you understand. That's not the only difference, is it?" Hyun said. The merchant's smile faded a little. "Well, she cannot breathe fire like the others. Some kind of defect in her genetics. But she is still a dragon. Still exotic. Still rare." Hyun stood up and looked at the merchant. "How much?" The merchant's eyes widened with surprise and greed. "For you, my friend, only 500 credits." Hyun's entire month's salary was 600 credits. He looked back at the small dragon. She was watching him with those bright gold eyes, hope flickering in them like a small flame. "I'll give you 450, Hyun said. "That's all I have with me." The merchant started to argue, but then looked at the hatchling and sighed. "Fine, 450. But you take her now. I need the cage space." Hyun paid the merchant and carefully opened the cage. The hatchling did not move at first. She looked scared. "It's okay," Hyun said gently. "I won't hurt you." The hatchling slowly walked out of the cage. She was so small that Hyun could hold her in both hands. She weighed almost nothing. Her scales felt warm against the skin. "What will you call me?" the voice asked in his mind. Hyun thought for a moment as they left the marketplace. "How about Ember? Like a small piece of fire." "But I cannot make fire," the hatchling said sadly. "That doesn't matter," Hyun replied. "You're still warm. You still have a light inside you. Ember fits you perfectly." The small dragon, now named Ember, pressed closer to Hyun's chest as they walked through the crowded station corridors. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong. When they reached Hyun's quarters, he faced a problem. Station regulations did not allow dangerous creatures in residential areas. Dragons were classified as dangerous creatures, even small ones. "We can't go to my apartment," Hyun said to Ember. but I have a workshop in the maintenance decks. Nobody goes there except me. You'll be safe there." The maintenance decks were deep in the station, where the air recyclers hummed and pipes ran along every wall. Hyun's workshop was a small room filled with broken machines, spare parts, and tools. It was messy, but it was warm and quiet. Hyun cleared a space in the corner and made a nest from old blankets and soft materials. Ember climbed into it and curled up, her tail wrapped around her body. "Why did you choose me?" Ember asked. "Everyone else walked past my cage." Hyun sat down on the floor next to her nest. "I know what it feels like to be told you're not good enough. When I was younger, people said I would never be a good mechanic. They said I didn't have the right skills. But I proved them wrong. I think maybe you're not defective at all. I think maybe you're just different. And different can be special." Ember's eyes began to close. She felt safe for the first time since hatching. "Thank you, Hyun. Get some rest." Hyun said, "Tomorrow I have to work, but you'll be safe here. I promise." Just as Hyun stood up to leave, loud alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors outside. Hyun's communication device beeped urgently. All maintenance personnel report immediately. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Life support failure in sectors 7, 9, and 12. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Hyun looked at Ember with worry. "I have to go. Stay here and stay hidden. Don't let anyone see you." Ember nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Hyun grabbed his tool bag and ran out of the workshop, leaving Ember alone in her new home. The small dragon listened to his footsteps fade away. Then she listened to the humming of the machines around her. She could feel something strange in the air, like electricity buzzing just beneath her scales. She did not know it yet, but this feeling would change everything. Ember stayed in her nest of blankets, listening to the alarm sounds echo through the walls. She felt scared and alone, but she remembered Hyun's words. "Stay hidden. Stay safe." She curled up tighter and tried to sleep, but the strange buzzing feeling under her scales kept growing stronger. Hours passed. The workshop was quiet except for the humming of machines and the distant sounds of people running in the corridors. Ember's stomach rumbled. She was hungry, but Hyun had left in such a hurry that he forgot to leave her any food. She climbed out of her nest and looked around the workshop. Tools hung on the walls. Broken machines sat on tables. Wires and metal parts covered every surface. To most creatures, it would look like a messy room full of junk. But to Ember, something felt different. The buzzing under her scales grew stronger when she walked near certain machines. She moved closer to a large box with blinking lights. The buzzing became almost painful. Something was wrong with this machine. She could feel it the same way other dragons might feel heat or cold. Ember pressed her small clawed hand against the metal box. Images flooded her mind. She could see the electricity flowing through wires inside, but in one place, the flow was wrong. It was leaking, sparking, breaking down. She pulled her hand away, confused and frightened by what she had sensed. What did this mean? Why could she feel these things? The workshop door suddenly opened. Ember jumped and ran behind a pile of spare parts, hiding herself from view. A young man entered the workshop. He was younger than Hyun, maybe 20 years old. He wore the same kind of work clothes that Hyun wore. His name tag said Miho. Miho walked to a tool cabinet and started searching through drawers. "Where did Hyun put the plasma cutters?" he muttered to himself. Ember stayed very still behind the spare parts. Her heart beat fast. She remembered Hyun's warning. Nobody could see her, but Miho heard something. A small sound, like claws scraping on metal. He turned around and looked toward the pile of spare parts. "Hello? Is someone there?" Ember did not move, did not breathe. Miho walked closer. He moved some parts aside and then stopped, his eyes going wide. "What in the... is that a dragon?" Ember looked up at him with frightened gold eyes. Miho stared at her for a long moment. Then he knelt down slowly, keeping his movements gentle. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Does Hyun know you're here?" Ember decided to trust him. "Yes, he brought me here. Please don't tell anyone." Miho jumped back in surprise. "You can talk?" In my head. I can speak to minds, yes, Ember said quietly. Hyun said I must stay hidden. Station rules say no dragons. Miho sat down on the floor, still looking amazed. This is incredible. I've never seen a dragon this close before, especially not one that can... He paused. Wait, if you're telepathic, can you read my thoughts? No, Ember said. I can only send my own thoughts, not read yours. Miho relaxed a little. That's good, I guess. So, what's your name? Ember. I'm Miho. I work with Hyun sometimes. He looked around the workshop. Are you hungry? You look pretty thin. Ember's stomach rumbled again, answering for her. Miho smiled. Wait here. I'll be right back. He left the workshop and returned 10 minutes later with a container of food. It was meat from the station cafeteria. Ember ate it quickly, too hungry to be polite. While she ate, Miho noticed her looking at the machine with blinking lights. What are you looking at? Ember swallowed her food. That machine. Something is wrong with it. That's the backup power relay for the section, Miho said. It's been acting strange for weeks. Hyun and I have been trying to fix it, but our scanners can't find the problem. Ember walked over the machine and placed her hand on it again. There, inside, a wire is breaking. It sparks and leaks electricity. Miho pulled out his scanner and aimed it at the spot Ember indicated. The scanner showed nothing wrong. He frowned. The scanner says everything is fine there. The scanner is wrong, Ember said firmly. I can feel it. Miho looked at the small dragon, then at the machine. He made a decision. He opened the machine's panel and carefully looked inside. At first, he saw nothing. Then he moved the circuit board aside and saw it. A tiny crack in a wire casing, almost invisible. Electricity was indeed leaking from it, exactly where Ember said it would be. How did you... Miho stared at Ember with new respect. How did you know that was there? I don't know, Ember said honestly. I can just feel electricity, like it talks to me. Miho sat back, his mind racing. Ember, do you know what this means? If you can detect electrical problems that our scanners miss, you could help us fix things that have been broken for months, maybe years. But I can't breathe fire like other dragons, Ember said sadly. The merchant said I was defective. Defective? Miho laughed. You're not defective. You're something completely different. Better, even. Fire-breathing dragons are common. But a dragon who can sense electricity? I've never heard of anything like that. Ember felt something warm grow in her chest. It was not fire. It was hope. Over the next few hours, Miho tested Ember's abilities. He brought different machines for her to examine. Each time, she could sense problems that scanners could not detect. She could feel where electricity flowed wrong, where wires were damaged, where circuits were failing. When Hyun finally returned to the workshop, he looked exhausted. His clothes were covered in more grease and soot than before. He had been working for 16 hours straight on the life support emergency. He stopped in the doorway when he saw Miho sitting on the floor with Ember, surrounded by machine parts. Hyun. Miho jumped up excitedly. You're not going to believe what Ember can do. Hyun looked worried. Miho, I can explain. No need to explain, Miho said quickly. Look, I know station rules say no dragons, but Hyun, Ember is special. She can sense electrical problems. Real problems. Problems our scanners can't find. Hyun looked at Ember, who nodded her small head. It's true. I can feel electricity. Like it's alive. Hyun slowly sat down, processing this information. You can sense electrical systems? Yes, Ember said. I found the problem in the backup relay. Miho checked, and I was right. Miho pulled out his datapad and showed Hyun the images. She's accurate. Hyun, perfectly accurate. That relay has been glitching for 3 weeks. None of our equipment could find the problem. Ember found it in seconds. Hyun looked at Ember with wonder. You were never defective at all. You're just a different kind of dragon, not made for fire. Made for this, for technology. Ember's scales seemed to brighten a little, even though they were still gray. For the first time in her short life, she did not feel useless. So what do we do now? Miho asked. Hyun thought carefully. We keep her hidden for now, but we also keep testing her abilities. If she can really do what you say, then maybe we can prove she's valuable to the station. Valuable enough that they'll let her stay. I want to help, Ember said. I want to be useful. You already are, Hyun said gently, reaching out to stroke her head. You already are. The three of them sat together in the quiet workshop, each thinking about the future. None of them knew that in just 2 days, Ember would get her chance to prove her worth in a way that would save thousands of lives. Outside the workshop, the station continued its endless rotation through space, unaware of the small gray dragon who might change everything. 2 days passed quietly in the workshop. Hyun brought food for Ember and continued teaching her about the station systems. She learned quickly, faster than any apprentice he had ever trained. Miho visited during his breaks, bringing new machines for Ember to practice on. Her accuracy was perfect every time. On the third morning, everything changed. Hyun was showing Ember a complex circuit board when his communication device started beeping urgently. Not the normal beep. This was the emergency tone that meant something serious had happened. All personnel report to Command Center immediately. A voice said through every speaker on the station, "We have a Priority 1 distress call." Repeat, Priority 1 distress call. Hyun looked at Ember. Stay here. Lock the door after I leave. Be careful, Ember said, worry clear in her mental voice. Hyun ran through the corridors to the command center. When he arrived, he found dozens of crew members already gathered. On the large screen at the front of the room, a damaged ship floated in space. It was huge, at least 10 times bigger than a normal transport ship. Captain Jiwoo stood at the center of the room, her face serious. She was a tall woman with short black hair and the kind of voice that made people listen. This is a colony ship, Sunrise Hope. She's carrying 3,000 passengers to the new settlement on Kepler 442b. Their main systems failed 6 hours ago. Life support is failing. There may be 12 hours before the air runs out. A holographic image of the ship appeared, showing damage throughout its structure. Red markers indicated failed systems. There were too many to count. We're the closest station, Captain Jiwoo continued. We have to try to save them. Engineering teams will board the ship and attempt repairs. But I won't lie to you. This looks bad. Very bad. Hyun felt his stomach twist. 3,000 people. 12 hours. It seemed impossible. The captain assigned teams quickly. Hyun was put on Team 3, responsible for the ship's lower decks. They gathered their equipment and boarded a shuttle that would take them to the damaged colony ship. When they arrived, Hyun saw how bad things really were. The ship was dark inside. Emergency lights flickered weakly. The air already smelled stale and thin. People huddled in groups, children crying, adults trying to stay calm. Hyun's team went to the engineering section. They started working immediately, using their scanners to find problems. But after 2 hours, they had barely made progress. The systems were too damaged. Their scanners kept giving false readings. They would fix one problem, only to find 3 more. In the command center back on Nexus Prime Station, Captain Jiwoo watched the progress reports with growing concern. They were running out of time. At this rate, they would not save even half the passengers. Dae, the security officer who was Hyun's friend, stood next to the captain. He had been watching the reports too. He knew Hyun was on that ship, trying his best. But he also knew something the captain did not know. He knew about Ember. Dae made a decision. He left the command center and ran to the maintenance decks. He found the workshop and knocked on the door. Ember? It's Dae, Hyun's friend. I know you're in there. I need to talk to you. Ember unlocked the door carefully. She had met Dae once before when he visited the workshop. He had been kind to her. What's wrong? It's Hyun, Dae said. He's on a dying ship trying to save 3,000 people. But they can't find all the damaged systems in time. Their scanners aren't working properly. Ember, I know what you can do. I've seen the reports Hyun and Miho wrote. You can sense electrical problems that machines can't detect. Ember's eyes widened. You want me to go to the ship? I know it's dangerous, Dae said. I know you might be seen by lots of people. But those people will die if we don't help them, including Hyun. Ember did not hesitate. Take me to the ship. Day wrapped Ember in a blanket and carried her through the station to the shuttle bay. Some people gave him strange looks, but no one stopped him. When they reached the shuttle, Day explained the situation to the pilot. "You're bringing a dragon?" the pilot asked, shocked. "I'm bringing a solution," Day replied firmly. They flew to the colony ship. When they boarded, Day carried Ember straight to the engineering section where Hyun's team was working. The other crew members stopped and stared when they saw the small gray dragon. Hyun turned around and saw Ember. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be safe in the workshop." "I came to help," Ember said simply. Before Hyun could argue, Captain Jiwoo's voice came through the communication system. She had been notified about the dragon immediately. "What is going on down there?" Someone explained why there's an unauthorized creature on that ship. Hyun took a deep breath. "Captain, this is Ember. She's a dragon with a special ability. She can sense electrical problems that our scanners cannot detect. I know this sounds strange, but I'm asking you to trust me. Let her try to help." There was a long silence. Then Captain Jiwoo's voice came back, tight with stress. "We have 8 hours left. Our current methods are failing. Fine, let's see what this dragon can do. But if this doesn't work, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do." Hyun set Ember down on the floor. "Can you feel the ship's systems?" Ember closed her eyes and spread her awareness outward. It was like diving into an ocean of electricity. She could feel currents flowing through walls, through floors, through every wire in the massive ship, and she could feel where those currents were broken, damaged, dying. "There," she said, pointing to a wall. "Behind that panel, the main power conduit has a crack. Your scanners can't see it because it's between 2 layers of shielding." The crew opened the panel. Ember was right. They found the crack and repaired it. "There," Ember said again, moving to another section. "That junction box is completely dead. Replacing it will restore power to sectors 12 through 15. Again, she was correct. For the next 6 hours, Ember guided the repair teams through the ship. She found problems in seconds that would have taken hours to locate with scanners. She sensed damage through walls, floors, and ceilings. Her small body never seemed to tire, though her mind grew exhausted from processing so much information. The repair teams worked faster than they had ever worked before. Systems came back online one by one. Life support stabilized. Power returned to critical sections. With 1 hour left before the air would have run out completely, the last critical system was repaired. The colony ship was safe. In the passenger areas, people cheered and cried with relief. They had no idea that a small gray dragon had saved their lives. Back on Nexus Prime Station, Captain Jiwoo watched the final reports come in. Every system was stable. All 3,000 passengers were safe. She sat back in her chair, amazed. When the shuttles returned to the station, news of the rescue had already spread. People gathered in the shuttle bay to see the crew return, and they wanted to see the dragon who had performed a miracle. Ember rode on Hyun's shoulder, too tired to walk. When she saw all the people staring at her, she pressed closer to Hyun's neck. She was scared of so many eyes watching her. But then something unexpected happened. The people started clapping, then cheering. They were not angry about a dragon being on the station. They were grateful. Captain Jiwoo walked through the crowd to stand in front of Hyun and Ember. She looked at the small dragon for a long moment. Then she smiled. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, Ember. I think we need to talk about making your stay here official." Ember looked up at Hyun, hope shining in her gold eyes. Maybe she had finally found a place where she belonged. The morning after the rescue, Ember woke up in Hyun's workshop to find everything had changed. News of her abilities had spread throughout the entire station. People talked about the small gray dragon who saved 3,000 lives. Some called her a hero. Others called her valuable. A few called her dangerous. Hyun brought breakfast for Ember and sat with her while she ate. "We have a meeting with the station council today," he said, quietly. "They want to decide what happens to you. Will they make me leave?" Ember asked, fear creeping into her voice. "I won't let that happen," Hyun promised. "You're not property. You're not a tool. You're family. At noon, they went to the council chambers. The room was large with high ceilings. 15 council members sat in a curved row of seats, looking down at a small platform where Hyun and Ember stood. Captain Ji-woo stood to the side as a witness. Before anyone could speak, the doors opened again. The merchant who had sold Ember walked in, his purple skin flushed with anger. Behind him was a tall woman in an expensive suit. She introduced herself as June, a corporate lawyer. "That dragon is stolen property," the merchant shouted, pointing at Ember. "This human took her without proper documentation. I demand she be returned to me immediately." Hyun stepped in front of Ember protectively. "I paid you 450 credits for her. I have the transaction record." "The sale was not legal," June said smoothly. "My client did not have proper permits to sell exotic creatures on this station. Therefore, the sale is void. The dragon must be returned." One of the council members, an older man named Tae, leaned forward. If the merchant didn't have legal permits, then he had no right to sell her in the first place. That means she doesn't belong to anyone. "Exactly," June said with a cold smile, "which means she is unclaimed property. My client found her first. She reverts to his custody." "She's not property," Hyun said, his voice rising. "Ember is intelligent. She can think, communicate, and make decisions. She's a sentient being." The council members began talking among themselves. Some agreed with Hyun. Others worried about setting a dangerous precedent. What would happen if every exotic creature claimed to be sentient? Then the doors opened a third time. A woman in an elegant blue uniform entered. She had an air of authority that made everyone go quiet. "I am Ambassador Salmon from the Galactic Council," she announced. "I apologize for interrupting, but I have urgent information about this dragon." Everyone stared at her. The Galactic Council rarely sent ambassadors to small trading stations like Nexus Prime. Something important was happening. Ambassador Salmon walked to the center of the room and activated a holographic display. An image of a dragon appeared. It looked similar to Ember, with gray scales and wings, but it was much larger and older. "This dragon belongs to a species we believe was extinct," Salmon said. "They are called circuit drakes. 500 years ago, they were the greatest engineers in the known galaxy. They helped build the first space stations, the first jump gates, the first quantum computers. They could interface with technology in ways we still don't fully understand." Ember stared at the hologram, her eyes wide. "That's what I am." "Yes," Salmon said gently. "Your people were wiped out by a plague 500 years ago. Or so we thought. You may be the last of your kind, hatched from an egg that was somehow preserved all this time." The room erupted in noise. Council members talked over each other. The merchant's face went pale as he realized what he had almost thrown away. June quickly started talking to her client in hushed tones. "If she's the last of her species," one council member said, "then she's invaluable. She belongs in a research facility where she can be studied and protected." "No," Hyun said firmly. "She belongs with me." "You're a mechanic," another council member argued. "You can't provide the kind of care and resources she needs." A new voice spoke up. It was Dr. Hannah, a xenobiologist who had been studying the reports from the rescue mission. "Actually, I disagree. My analysis shows that Ember has been developing rapidly since bonding with Hyun. Her neural patterns indicate strong emotional attachment. Separating them now could cause serious psychological damage." "This is irrelevant," June interrupted. "The dragon is still legally the property of my client, regardless of her species." "Your client had no legal right to possess her in the first place," Captain Ji-woo said, speaking for the first time. "He was trafficking in potentially sentient beings without proper documentation. I could have him arrested right now." The merchant looked nervous. June whispered something to him, and he nodded quickly. "Perhaps we can reach a compromise," June said. "My client is willing to drop all claims to the dragon in exchange for compensation. Say 50,000 credits. "That's extortion," Hyun said. "That's business," June replied. Ambassador Salmon held up her hand. Before any decisions are made, I believe Ember herself should have a voice in this matter. She is clearly intelligent and capable of expressing her wishes. The head council member nodded. Very well. Ember, you have permission to speak. Ember stepped forward on the platform. She was so small compared to all the humans and aliens in the room, but her voice in their minds was clear and strong. When I was in that cage, she said, everyone who looked at me saw something broken, something worthless. They saw something to throw away. Only Hyun saw me as someone who mattered. He gave me a home when I had nothing. He gave me a name when I was nobody. He showed me that being different doesn't mean being defective. She looked up at Hyun, then back at the council. I don't care about laws or credits or who owns who. I choose Hyun. He's my family, and I won't leave him. The room was silent. Even June seemed at a loss for words. Ambassador Samin smiled. The Galactic Council recognizes the right of sentient beings to choose their own path. I formally declare Ember to be a free individual under galactic law. She is not property. She cannot be bought or sold. And her choice to stay with Hyun is legally binding. The head council member nodded slowly. Then it's settled. Ember will remain on Nexus Prime under the guardianship of Hyun. The merchant's claims are dismissed. This meeting is adjourned. The merchant left quickly, followed by the disappointed lawyer. The council members filed out, talking among themselves. Dr. Hannah approached Hyun and Ember. I'd like to continue monitoring Ember's development, if that's all right, she said. Not as a specimen, but as a friend. What she represents is incredible. The last of the circuit drakes. There's so much we could learn. As long as Ember agrees, Hyun said. I agree, Ember said. I want to learn about my people too. Ambassador Samin approached them last. There's something else you should know, she said quietly. We detected a signal 3 days ago. It came from deep space, far beyond any settled systems. The signal uses an ancient frequency that matches circuit drake communication patterns. We're organizing an expedition to investigate. I think you should both come with us. Hyun and Ember looked at each other. Could there be more circuit drakes out there? Was Ember not alone after all? When we leave, Hyun asked. Samin smiled. In 1 week. Prepare yourselves. You might be about to discover something incredible. The exploration ship called Horizon Seeker left Nexus Prime Station 1 week later. It was smaller than Colony's ship, but built for long journeys into deep space. Hyun and Ember stood at the window of their quarters, watching the station grow smaller behind them. Nervous? Hyun asked. Yes, Ember admitted. What if we find nothing? What if I really am the last one? Hyun put his hand on her head gently. Then you're still not alone. You have me, Miho, Day, and everyone else on the station. Family isn't just about where you come from. It's about who stand beside you. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Ember learned more about her species from the old records that Ambassador Samin shared. The circuit drakes had not just been engineers. They had been partners to the first space travelers. They had helped species reach for the stars. They had been teachers, guides, and friends. They were amazing, Ember said softly as she read through the files. You're amazing, too, Hyun reminded her. You saved 3,000 people. You're doing exactly what your ancestors did, helping others. Captain Bora, who commanded the Horizon Seeker, called everyone to the bridge on the 21st day. We're approaching the source of the signal. She announced, prepare for something unexpected. What they found took everyone's breath away. Hidden in an asteroid field was a massive structure. It looked ancient, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. The structure was shaped like a flower with 12 petals, each one as large as Nexus Prime Station itself. What is that? Someone whispered. Ambassador Samin, check her instruments. It's a sanctuary station, built by the circuit drakes before the plague. I've read about these in old texts, but I never thought I'd see one. They approached carefully. As they got closer, the symbols on the structure began glowing brighter. A docking bay opened, welcoming them inside. The team put on spacesuits and explored the station. Everything was dark and silent. Dust covered the floors. But the structure itself was still intact, preserved perfectly by the vacuum of space. Ember felt something pulling at her mind. A call, faint but growing stronger. "This way," she said, leading the group deeper into the station. They followed her through corridors and chambers until they reached a vast room at the center of the station. The room was filled with hundreds of crystalline pods. Each pod glowed with a soft light. Dr. Hannah approached one of the pods carefully. Her eyes went wide as she checked her scanner. "These are stasis pods, and they're active. There's something alive inside them." Ember pressed her hand against the nearest pod. Through the crystal, she could see an egg. A dragon egg, just like the one she must have hatched from. But this egg was safe, protected, waiting. "There are so many," Hyun said, looking around the room in wonder. "Hundreds of them." Ambassador Samin found a control panel near the entrance. The symbols on it matched the ones Ember had been learning. "Ember, can you read this?" Ember walked over and studied the symbols. Understanding flowed into her mind, as if her ancestors were teaching her directly. It's a message. It says, "We knew the plague would take us, but we refused to let it take our future. Here sleep our children, waiting for a time when the galaxy is ready for them again. When one of us awakens and finds this place, it will be time to bring the others home." Tears formed in Ember's eyes. Her people had not given up. They had not abandoned hope. They had just been waiting for her. "Can we wake them?" Captain Bora asked. Dr. Hannah studied the pods carefully. "These stasis systems are incredibly advanced. But yes, I think we can safely wake them. One at a time, very slowly." Over the next few days, the team worked to activate the Sanctuary Station's main systems. Ember helped, using her connection to the technology to guide them. The ancient station came alive, lights flickering on throughout its vast corridors. They decided to wake one egg first, to make sure the process was safe. Ember chose a pod near the center of the room. Dr. Hannah monitored everything carefully as the stasis field slowly powered down. The egg inside began to glow brighter. Cracks appeared on its surface. Then, with a soft sound, a small dragon hatchling pushed her way out. Her scales were silver, shining like starlight. The hatchling looked around with frightened eyes. She was alone in a strange place, surrounded by tall creatures she didn't know. Ember stepped forward and knelt down. "Hello, little one. Don't be afraid. You're safe now." The silver hatchling tilted her head, hearing Ember's voice in her mind. "Who are you?" "I'm Ember. I'm like you. And I promise you're not alone anymore." The hatchling slowly walked toward Ember. When they touched, something beautiful happened. Knowledge passed between them. Memories from the ancient circuit drakes flowed into both their minds. It was like meeting family they had never known but had always been waiting for. In the following weeks, more eggs were carefully awakened. Each hatchling was scared at first, but Ember was there for every one of them. She told them they were wanted, that they had a purpose, that they belonged. Hyun watched Ember with pride. She had grown so much from the scared hatchling in the cage. Now she was helping others the way he had helped her. Ambassador Samin approached Hyun one evening as he worked on repairing one of the Sanctuary Station systems. "What will you do now?" she asked. "The station needs a chief engineer, someone to help rebuild it and teach the young ones about technology. I can't think of anyone better than you." Hyun looked at Ember, who was playing with 3 young hatchlings across the room. "I think I'd like that, as long as Ember wants to stay." "I want to stay," Ember said, having heard him with her telepathic sense. "This is where I'm needed. But you'll stay too, right?" "Of course," Hyun said. "We're family. Families stick together." Miho, Day, and even Yuna from the medical bay requested transfers to the Sanctuary Station. Captain Jiwoo approved them all. The station needed good people, and Hyun had the best team anyone could ask for. Years passed. The Sanctuary Station, renamed Hope's Haven, became a thriving community. Dozens of young circuit drakes learned about technology alongside human engineers. They formed partnerships, just like their ancestors had done centuries ago. Together, they built amazing things and helped ships and stations throughout the galaxy. Ember grew into a beautiful adult dragon. Her scales, once dull gray, now shimmered with silver light. She became a teacher, showing the younger ones how to use their gifts. She traveled to different worlds, helping with engineering projects that seemed impossible. But she always came home to Hope's Haven, home to Hyun. One day, many years after they first arrived at the sanctuary, a new hatchling emerged from a stasis pod. This one was small, and his scales were brown instead of silver or gray. The other young dragons looked at him uncertainly. The brown hatchling sat down, his head lowered. "Nobody wants me," he whispered sadly. Ember walked over and knelt beside him, just as Hyun had once knelt beside her. "That's not true, little one. I want you. You're exactly who you're meant to be. And you know what? You're going to do amazing things." She looked across the room at Hyun, who was now older with gray hair at his temples. He smiled at her, remembering a scared gray hatchling in a marketplace cage so long ago. "Come on," Ember said to the brown hatchling, offering her wing for him to shelter under. "Let me introduce you to my family. Let me show you that you belong." The young dragon looked up at her with hope in his eyes, just as she once had looked at Hyun. And Ember knew that the cycle would continue. The unwanted would be claimed. The lost would be found. And every creature who felt broken would learn that they were actually perfect, just waiting for someone to see them truly. The sanctuary station hummed with life and light, floating peacefully in the asteroid field. Inside its walls, dragons and humans worked side by side, building a future that neither could create alone. And at the center of it all was a small gray dragon who had once been told she was worthless, now teaching others that every life has meaning. Some stories never really end. They just keep beginning again, with each new creature who needs to hear the same message. You are wanted. You are needed. You belong.